You are rolling.
We're rolling. Guy. Welcome back to Tip of the Hershberg, my new podcast where I discuss different things I love and hate, different topics with each guest. Today we have Gabe Mollica, my opener.
What's up?
I mean, that's not all you are.
Yes, I have an identity outside of doing.
But you started your origin story is my opener, and I always had you because you're very funny. But I'd also like to come on after you and be like, give it up for my, or I'm like your before picture.
Yes,
it was a hacky joke, but it really got like a laugh right away. So that's mainly why I hired you.
Yeah, we only do
for the
bad
hacky
gigs.
Yeah,
so
right,
so
worked out.
Yeah, any hack. We go on these drives and we're like, can we make our act hackier for this tent in New Jersey?
Yeah, we performed a lot of tents and domes and picnics and
Albany.
We were like a homeless comedy tour. Did we ever have walls?
We did not have walls for a long time.
Yeah.
We did domes and tents.
It was like our comedy career. It was like the beginning of civilization. It like you could track each era.
Yeah,
We like started it in the I don't know, what do you call it? The what's the first era of civilization? The
the Homo sapiens.
Fonzie, look it up. That's what you do in podcast. Every podcast should just be called, I don't know. Every podcast should just be called morons looking up shit on Google.
Now we have a guy.
Yeah,
now
we have a guy.
That you have
we
a
have
guy.
the fucking whatever the era, the iron, gold, bronze, suck my dick,
sure.
whatever
yes,
the fuck.
Yes. We're working up.
And what'd you say? Bronze Age.
Yes.
Yeah,
and we're paid in food.
Yeah, we're paid in food, so it was like agricultural age, and eventually it was like. I think we got a wall with a gig with walls in it, right?
You asked me to do the Albany Funny Bone, and I was like, "We are making
Shelter.
moves." Yeah, I was like, "This isn't a mall."
It's like when the first primitive man realized, "Oh, I can put these two walls together and make a home."
And they cut corners. There's no feature. There's a host and a headliner.
Syracuse Funny Bone was our first shelter.
No, Albany.
Yeah, Albany was our first shelter.
You asked me to do Syracuse a year ago, but it was the day before Thanksgiving. I can't miss Thanksgiving with my family, so I could have gone earlier.
It was a bad gig, I remember, but you were just grateful to be inside, right? Like it rained at one point, and you were like, "Hey, this is great. I'm not getting rained on."
I as many honey mustards and barbecue sauces with my chicken fingers as I wanted. It was pretty good.
And we didn't have a train to. We were getting heckled by nature and God. That was the industrial age when we had
Soul Joel's.
Soul Joel's. It was in a dome, and there was a train, and you'd have to time your jokes. You have to time your jokes around when you have to look at the train schedule before you wrote out your set list. You're like, which joke does well with a train booming in the background?
Yeah, we're downloading the app.
One time I went with Caitlin Palufo, and I don't know, we were co-headlining or something, but she went first. And a train because there was a train tracks right behind the tent at Soul Joe's. A train went through her entire set. Like she literally did. It was like one of those trains that just never ends. She literally did 30 minutes over train, and then I went up and just had like beautiful I bombed, so beautiful silence. But it was so funny. She just had a train the whole time.
And if you guys are both loud.
Yeah.
You know, like you are two. If I had to pick two comedians who could perform while a train is happening, you two would be on that list. There's a lot of people who would be like, just not heard. I'm
loud, and it always works with me, the train, because I have so many Holocaust jokes. It becomes like immersive sounds in the bit I'm doing. You know, I'm most likely going to be in an Auschwitz bit, so I can be like, all right, this is like 5D movies.
That's your insurance policy. It's like, I'll do an hour of Auschwitz jokes, and then if there's a train, even better.
I did, during the pandemic and all that shit, I did have when the trains came, I did start doing a bit about being a Jew and how it was triggering. Like I literally had to have
a save line.
A save line for trains. And then I had another save line for helicopters. I had save lines for different, and be like, oh, it's a manhunt. They're looking for a hat. You know what I mean? Like I had to have during the pandemic, it was all outdoors. I had to have a save line for every type of transportation.
Park shows, crazy people in parks. You had it. Yeah, we developed an entirely new bag of tricks because normally it's like, oh, if this guy yells not funny, you might have something to say. But this is like a whole. We're now going back. You're right to being outdoor storytellers.
Yeah, I remember when I performed on that was that roof, tiny cupboard. And I remember it was like a roof, and it was very scary getting up there. Eventually, I think they made it illegal to be up on that roof. But I went on there once, and someone was heckling me right away, And, I just come back real hard. And I wasn't thinking. Someone heckled me, and I was like, shut the fuck up or I'll throw you off the roof. And it got so quiet. Because everyone there didn't know me. So they're like, is he threatening murder? Like, I didn't realize, like, if you don't know the person, that's just, like, technically a threat of murder. And, like, maybe he's joking, but what if he's not?
Yeah.
And I had to it took me so long to pull out of that hole.
Well, we forget, especially you, somebody, like, you'll do, like, 4 or 5 spots at night sometimes. So, like, you're just so used to comedy, you've seen everything that night.
Yeah.
And this person might not have gone to comedy in years.
Yeah. And it's like, it's different if you're, like, saying something hypothetical. We are on the roof.
Yeah.
So it's like jokes aren't as... You can't like laugh it off as much,
No. People don't know.
All they knew from the beginning of my set is I may or may not throw this person off the roof if he kept on. Like, you don't want to build the tension of Goodfellas in a comedy set.
And it already feels dangerous because you have to crawl up that ladder.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm so glad I did that show because that night I did a show there during the pandemic. I wasn't doing a lot of shows because I was living with my parents and I didn't want to get them sick. But I did that show. It was that summer. And I got bumped for somebody with an unaired HBO credit, HBO Max credit, not
unaired
even
HBO. Like, how unaired? You mean?
Like I don't even think they ever aired it.
Oh.
And so like they were like, oh, we got a special drop, and I was like, who is this? Unaired HBO Max credit. So I tweeted that, and that's how I first got in touch with Jason Zinneman from the New York Times, who now has talked about both of us.
Right.
It's all because I got bumped. That's how we first made contact.
Right.
Because he DM'd me.
Yeah.
He was like, did you get bumped for an unaired HBO Max credit? And I go, yeah. And he told me.
Don't we all technically have an unaired HBO Max credit?
Yes.
I don't need to get philosophical, but like...
yeah, technically. That's very zen of you. Yeah.
Have we all had things not produced by HBO?
Yeah, well, that was the big thing when HBO became HBO Max, where it's like, oh, they're going to get pretty loosey-goosey with the HBO credit. Because it used to mean... you were Dan Soder. And now it could mean like, oh yeah, I was an extra in the other two.
And then they did the Latino. I feel like only Latino comedians have done HBO.
That's right. There's a large contingency of
and I remember
Pedro
like,
Salinas.
well, it doesn't count. You have to be Latino. But then they let some white people on. I'm like, all right.
That's right. I was very happy for Pedro Salinas.
He slipped on there. He's Latino.
He's done it twice.
Yeah. He's a great comic. I'm so glad he got. But I will say, like, I mean, like, if you're white, you're just a white guy in fucking Brazil or whatever. That's just white guys.
Oh, sure.
Right?
So you're saying your dream credit is HBO Brazil.
Well, I thought the whole point of like diversity is to not get those asshole privileged white guys on stage. But like a white guy in Brazil, he came from people who raped and pillage just like the white guys anywhere else.
Sure, and the Nazis moved there. I
mean, so you can have a Nazi and fucking exactly. Joseph Mengele on the diverse stand up for diversity.
Yeah, you would be a prime candidate for HBO Brazil's.
Well, I will
showcase.
I will bring. Speaking of diversity, I might get might get in trouble for this, but I will say I got an issue. Yeah, you're coming down with me on this.
Yeah, great.
So, the Jeremy Lin documentary? Anyone see that? The Jeremy Lin documentary is good, but it's all about Asian hate, even though everyone loved him. That's what everything has to be now. It just has to be like, just sad and like even though people love Jeremy Lin, what I saw in the documentary was just like Asian crime at its worst, which is fine. But then fucking Hassan Minhaj comes on there talking about how he's a victim of Asian hate. And it's like, you're technically Asian, but that's not what they mean. I mean, at that point, you could have a fucking Russian on the fucking Jeremy Lin, just a Russian guy being like, Asian hate was so bad for me. Everyone would say, don't get the Wuhan virus from me. It's like, where does it end? And then also on his special, he talks shit about Kamal Nanjiani being like hot, even though he's hot. So now he's on the ugly train. He's got his head. There's no stopping him. He's in every fucking. He's like in every group.
You know what? I will say this as a white man who shares his director for my solo show. I have nothing bad to say about Hassan Minhaj, and he's invited to my show at the Soho Playhouse anytime.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I mean, but you know what I'm saying. It's like, because at one point he talks about how he's like. He's like, Asian hate was really bad. When my daughter went to class, we had to wear a double mask. Otherwise, if they cough, they'd be like, ooh, you're going to get the Wuhan from her. And no one thinks that about people from where he's from. That's
interesting.
You know what I mean? That's just he's just slipping in.
Well, I think it's funny. I think Ronnie Chang like posted like, I can't believe they put Hassan Minaj in this documentary.
Well, he's fucking right. Ronnie Chang should now do a fucking Stop 9/11 hate.
Sure, but don't we all like? There's a joke in my show where I talk about not having a lot of money, and there's a part of me that's like, oh, people are gonna be like, what are you talking about? Your parents own their house. You have money, and it's like, oh, but like, I mean this. And I'm like, oh, if you saw the number, you would not, like how much money I have, you would not.
But I don't think people would do that with you. I don't. No one's like, what are you talking about? Your parents are middle class. We know you're broke.
I guess I just feel like.
You are just as broke as Hassan is not the Asian we think of when we talk about Stop Asian Hate. I mean, Asia, a lot of places are in Asia. I mean, you can't fucking, we're going to have like Bibi Netanyahu from fucking Israel be on the Stop Asian Hate?
Sure. I will say after 9/11, Asian people from China and Japan were not, I don't think, targeted in the same way that Muslims were.
Well, right. I mean, obviously, like Stop Asian, I guess the point of Stop Asian Hate is a little broad.
Yes.
Right? It's like...
yes, the Asia as a concept has gotten...
Russian man attacked on the subway. Asian hate at its worst.
Yes. I think the Asian hate, like, post-coronavirus is like, oh, like, people from China are bad.
Right.
And so you're saying Hassan is banking on that to get in the documentary. He is a sports fan. Maybe it's like he played in the NBA.
I guarantee you, if
All-Star
I
game.
had a documentary about like anti-Semitism and I asked him to be on it, he would say yes without even. He'd be like, "Of course, thanks. I was waiting for the call."
Well, I'd also like to be in that documentary as a friend of a Jew.
I will be the victim, whatever group.
Yes. As an employee of a Jewish person, I would happily be in your anti-Semitism documentary.
But I don't know. But yeah, whatever. It's and then they bring up the guy who shot up the Asian parlor place.
Which one? I'm sorry.
Remember that guy who shot up I think Asian hate is a very serious thing, but sometimes I feel like they pin it on like that guy shot up an Asian
massage parlor. Yeah,
and he killed like 2 white women and a couple Asian women.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, it's Asian hate. It's like, can people just not hate women anymore? Like, well, here's my thing. I don't think it was Asian hate, because afterwards he shot them up and he said he was just like sexually frustrated, and then he said it wasn't racist. And I feel like if you're going to go to, like, I get some people don't want to be seen as racist.
Sure.
But probably if you're going to jail for murdering a bunch of people, you probably don't care whether people.
Hey, I'm a murderer. I'm not.
Yeah, unless they do. That's like,
I'm not a racist.
No, that wasn't racist. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's just like
I just indiscriminately murder.
Yes, I'm going to get the death penalty, but please don't cancel me.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not racist.
I'm trying to have like a John Hinckley career after I get out.
Yeah, he's fucking. He's crushing it, huh?
Yeah. Well, the venues that don't cancel. What did he shot?
By the way, perfect segue.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's great.
Perfect segue to the thing we're supposed to talk about.
That's great.
We have for 20 minutes to talk about.
I think subconsciously I was like, we got to get to Sondheim because we can't keep talking. We can't keep talking about celebrities that might come see my off-Broadway show.
By the way, see his off-Broadway show. It's great. I saw it. It's awesome. And he talks a lot about Sondheim, which is why I want to talk to you about Sondheim
Hell
today.
yeah.
But there's nowhere to get tickets now, right?
Not right now, but we're about to announce a big old extension.
Okay, we'll put a link when this comes out.
Yeah,
12 years.
6 weeks.
But so John Hinckley, of course, if you're not a Sondheim fan, you wouldn't know. But of course, and I saw this song recently. I was actually in Louisville at the Bardstown Theater, and they had like a little Sondheim review before my show.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and they had it was like a community thing, but some of them were terrible, and some were really good.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to list the name. No, but they did, of course, a song from Assassins, which is the song.
Which is a Sondheim musical about all the assassination attempts against presidents.
The song is called "I Am Unworthy of Your Love," and can we play shit on here or no?
It would just get demonetized and copyrighted.
Okay, cool.
We're not making any money anyway. Play it.
So it's a song from the perspective of John Hinckley and Speaky Fromm talking about their undying love or how they're unworthy of the love of the person they're obsessed with, and John Hinckley is, of course, singing to Jodie Foster. And it's a beautiful song.
Yeah.
And my friend was there. He doesn't know Sondheim, and he was like listening to the song, like laughing. It's like hilarious.
Of course.
And so catchy and so beautiful. And it's all about perspective. There's obviously humor in it, but at its heart, Sondheim's just writing about anyone, and he can write about anyone. He's like an actor. He can go into any, like, he takes on roles, and he's going on the roles of these people. And what does someone like John Hinckley feel about Jodie Foster, and he feels like he's unworthy of her love. You know what I mean? And so he fucking Sondheim knows how to just capture.
Yeah, had he lived 100 more years, there would be like an incel musical.
Yeah, of course.
Because he can. When he talks about songwriting, he's like, if you tell me to write a love song, I could never do that.
Right.
But if you tell me to write a love song about a 5'8" woman who's wearing a red dress, who walks into a party, who's carrying a cake, suddenly we have all these ingredients.
Right, which is interesting because he's obviously one of those creative people, Sondheim, but he's not one of those creative guys who can start from scratch. He needs prompts.
Yeah. We all do.
Yeah, he needs prompts, and because he is in that sense like an actor, where he needs some details to kind of go into. But he is so much like, I guess people compare him to Shakespeare, but they say about Shakespeare that in a sense Shakespeare had no self, so he can kind of go into all these different people. You know what I mean? Sure. And that's why you can't really ever see Shakespeare in his shows. It's not. It's like he's a blank slate, and that's how it feels with Sondheim.
Yeah, he didn't fall in love until he was like in his 60s or 70s.
Right, an observer, an objective observer.
Yeah, he just was like he was like a sponge living his life.
Yes.
And there's a new book. Mary Rogers wrote a book. Have you heard about this?
No.
Mary Rogers wrote like an expose book about they like secretly got married. And Sondheim was gay, and they would just like sit. Mary Rogers, the son of Richard,
of course,
the daughter of Richard Rogers,
who I believe is who in Merrily We Go Around. Maybe it's the woman is based on. Maybe?
Merrily We Roll Along.
Merrily, what did I just say?
Merrily We Go Around. Yeah, some of us are cultured.
I love Sondheim. He's one of my favorite, but that is probably out of all the titles the gayest of all his titles. Merrily We Roll Along, which is apparently not his
reverse and chrono. It's in opposite order. So they start out. They start out with a falling out, and the show ends with them creatively coming together. But Mary Rogers is who Sondheim used to say, like, oh, I interviewed her for company.
Right.
You've been married, tell me about marriage. But what we didn't know until this book has just come out, which my mom got me, getting it for Christmas, very excited, which is like, oh, they secretly got married, and like he was gay, and they would just like lay in bed together and like not do anything.
Oh, wow.
And he was like freaking out. I think he just like wanted. Neil Brennan talks about this a lot, which is like people get married so they can feel normal.
Yeah,
like, I'm doing what everybody's doing, right? Like I'm not abnormal.
Right.
And he's like, oh, I didn't. Then he fell in love with a man. He's like 75 years old. You know, like clearly he's not on a typical trajectory.
Yeah, a young guy, because gay people are allowed to. Thank God for men. Gay people, they don't give each other shit for going young. You know what I mean?
They're very supportive.
Well, it's because men look better as they get older. So they're like, okay, get that young acne guy, you know?
Yeah. It's a very supportive community. But yeah, let's talk about Sondheim, like, so like I found him in high school.
Let's talk about our initial interests. How I was going to ask you that. I want to talk about my experience first time with him, but let me. What's your introduction?
So I was a musical theater kid, so I would just do musicals every year.
And you do a lot of the very funny jokes about the show. You're not gay, but you're gay adjacent.
Yeah, I had two groups of friends. I had straight friends. I had my musical theater friends, and I had my straight friends, and I was in the middle. So I have these like I talk between these two groups, and so I was just like a musical theater kid who was in like bad musicals, you know?
Yeah.
Bye Bye Birdie, Annie. Oklahoma's a good one, but like not
all
like,
the shit that the Guido, New Jersey guys are like. Because that's the thing. Musicals aren't real. Men love musicals.
They do.
They do.
South Park guys are obsessed with them. Yeah.
But there's always those men like New Jersey. I'm going to take my girl to see Guys and Dolls. Or,
yes,
you know
literally, my dad fell asleep in the '80s taking my mom to see Guys and Dolls. That's exactly how it works.
Manly, honestly, kind of like manly musicals in a way.
Yeah. I had the manliest guy I grew up with is like obsessed with Phantom of the Opera. He thinks it's like the greatest thing ever.
And pre-Sondheim shows, I mean, Phantom of the Opera is different. Pre-Sondheim, like stuff like Guys and Dolls, Bye Bye Birdie. I'd say one of the big differences, it's kind of like country back then versus country now. Country back then, good country was very sad.
Yeah.
And melancholy, full of regret, which is like Sondheim and some of the more modern musical stuff. Country now, a lot of the new country is just like, I'm sitting on a porch and I feel good.
Yeah.
And like old musicals, all the songs are kind of happy.
Yes.
For the most part. I mean, it's every song is someone being pretty happy about life. Most of the songs are about people being happy, which I don't think is one Sondheim song, but most of the songs is like people like, I got my girl, I'm happy and I can whistle. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
No, I mean, that's a lot of it. And so like when people say they love musicals, like for me, it's a distinction. It's like, oh, do you love musicals, or like, what's your Sondheim opinion? Because like a lot of people like musicals because, you know, they're into Hamilton or whatever.
Right.
And for me, Hamilton's fine. We could talk about it. But like for me, Sondheim is like this like elevated form. It's like, oh, do you read murder mystery novels or do you read Proust?
Right.
Like Sondheim is like this like elevated
within the genre. He took the genre to a different level. He is like what Dylan is to folk music, Sondheim is to
absolutely
to musicals. He did add so much depth to it that wasn't necessarily there before. And that's why when I said, I guess I like musicals, but really I just love Sondheim.
Yeah.
So I just love Sondheim. I would love him in any, you know what I mean? I just love that artist, and he chose to be in musicals.
Yeah, he could have. If he wrote novels, I would have probably been obsessed with those novels.
Yeah, because I'm not like, you know, I do love some musicals. You know, I pretend to like Hamilton, and like no, Hamilton's catchy, but it's, you know, it's fucking nonsense. You know, Lin-Manuel Miranda's a pandering. He's just like, I'll believe whatever you want as long as you love me. You know what I mean?
It's pretty apolitical for something so political.
Took a Wikipedia
It's very
page and a
Obama
rhyming
era
dictionary.
politics.
Yeah, it's Schoolhouse Rock. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Benjamin Franklin, bye. You know, but like you learn a lot. The song, he's beautiful musically. He's a genius. I do think he's incredible. Yeah. But there's nothing really. The show is actually, if you look at Hamilton, it's really, if you take away all the apolitical bullshit, it's really just about his own ambition as
absolutely.
He is just Hamilton. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's really just about him being great.
Yeah, it's very self-referential.
It's very self-referential.
I mean, he compares himself to Biggie.
Yeah.
He compares himself to Jay-Z.
I think he's too narcissistic to maybe even be aware that it's self-referential, but that is essentially the show. Sure. I mean, the show is essentially him being like, I'm the best, I'm working hard. And also the theme is, I feel like I could die at any time, so I want to get all this out. And I do think that is how he feels. You know what I mean?
It is, which is why right before Hamilton, he wrote Bring It On the musical. He's really cementing his legacy.
Right.
So Sondheim's this like elevated form. And so I was a regular musical theater kid, just like doing shit. And it was mostly because I got cast and stuff, and adults were like, you're good at this, keep doing it.
Right.
I want to be like, oh yeah, like I knew I had this gift. It was like I was getting praise, and people were like, you're good in this, so keep doing it.
Interesting.
And then,
it was natural.
Yeah, I could sing. I made the all-state choir. I was like a good singer. And then in high school, I don't talk about this in my show, but I probably, because there's two other summer camp things, but I did a week at Westminster Choir College of only Sondheim music.
Wow.
So it's like some of the most talented people.
Heaven.
Yeah, it was, and for me, yes. Didn't kiss anyone. But it was like
that might officially be the gayest thing I've ever seen.
Well,
you telling me you did the
I went to Sondheim camp.
And then me sincerely being like, you mean otherwise known as heaven?
Well, you know what's so funny? I feel like, and like I'm happy to take shit because I love Sondheim, but like before we started this podcast, we're with Usama Siddiqui, and he's like, Sondheim, what's up?
I know.
Everybody has a song, like everybody, because if you do comedy, like there's like an art to it.
Well, I'm legitimately surprised that moron knew who Sondheim was.
But what I'm saying is that's more common than I think. Like people are into it because it is.
Are you into it, Fon? Do you know Sondheim?
We'll get him on there.
I actually don't. I never heard of him.
Okay, yeah. See,
we'll get you. We'll get you.
Common man right here.
Yeah. Take your girlfriend to go see Company, man.
I love like the Newsies.
Okay, that's a gateway drug to harder.
Yeah, I grew up on that.
Yeah. Newsies is great. Newsies is close. We'll get him to see Company, and we'll change his life. We'll get you a blowjob.
Please.
That's why you go to the Broadway. That's why people act like it's gay, but it's mainly for men from New Jersey to get a blowjob from their girlfriends later on that night.
And it works.
Yeah.
It's not like it's a theory.
Yeah, it's actually the straightest thing ever. So you're at the Sondheim camp. It's all Sondheim songs.
It's also, and so like you have to come with 16 bars from Sondheim, and we ended up doing like a review of Sondheim.
Nice.
So like I played the baker for It Takes Two.
Oh wow,
so
beautiful.
So like it was my kind of gateway into just like singing different Sondheim stuff. And then at the end of high school, I conducted Sunday from the end of Act 1 of Sunday in the Park with George, which is like my favorite Sondheim piece. It's kind of like this like funeral march kind of song.
Beautiful song. It's what they played when he died in Times Square.
Yes, yeah. And the whole song is one sentence. Yeah. And it's about an ordinary day and just like appreciating the beauty of that. And after that, I wrote him a letter. And just being like, hey, I'm a fan.
So you wrote him a letter pretty quickly.
I wrote him a letter.
So even back then, you networked pretty fast.
Yeah. You don't get it off Broadway without sending a couple of letters.
Even back then, you were like, let me find Sondheim. It was like a week. You hear one Sondheim song, you write him a letter.
Yeah. I got to have this guy in my contacts. That's very funny.
So yeah, and if people know Sondheim, he loved to respond to people. I mean, back then this was an email. I think today he wouldn't do it because it'd be insane. But like back then, if you put the effort into write a letter, he would respond.
Well, you know what's crazy? Now, after he died, I have like 6 or 7 letters from him from college and high school and stuff. And then it became like a thing. There's an Instagram account with like Sondheim letters, like everybody posting them. He wrote to the South Park guys. He wrote to everybody. But in 2010, like I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
I literally just Googled. I found it on a Broadway blog, like his address.
Oh wow! So you didn't know he had this proclivity? For
No, I just
writing.
like I had only written one other letter. It's the guy who wrote Calvin and Hobbes.
Right, and this was letters, right?
Letters. And I wanted him to sign the program of the concert I conducted, and instead he sent me back a signed headshot and a letter.
Wow.
On a typewriter and hand signed.
Little cocky thought you wanted the headshot.
And my college almost lost it. So
Really?
the story goes,
Well, what was your letter saying?
the letter was just like compliments, thank you, and also, hey, I'm going to study music next year at Hamilton and at Hamilton College. Yes,
Wow,
full
all
circle.
coming together.
And so the story goes, I don't know if you saw in the version of the show you saw, but I've begun to explain this further, which is the return address was my parents' house because I didn't know where I was going to live or whatever.
Right.
And he sends a letter to Hamilton College. And so my college almost lost it because they get this big package with a headshot and letter in it from Stephen Sondheim, but it doesn't have my mailbox number on
Wow.
it. So it's just sitting there for weeks. And one day they're like, oh, you're Gabe Mollica. And I read it and I'm like, oh, that's amazing. And then like right before I went to bed, I was like, wait a minute. The return address was my parents' house. He must have actually read the letter, and like him or his butler must have been like, all right, let's find Hamilton College and send it there.
Wow.
So like it was this odd proof that like he was reading them.
Wow.
And then I got a grant in college sophomore summer to study Into the Woods, like from a music theory perspective.
Heaven number 2.
You have a number 2. And they paid me, and me and a professor kind of like sat down and like wrote this big paper. And I started writing him about the theory of it, how he put it together. There's different themes. Sometimes he'll write a musical theme and then that theme will upside down be another melody.
Oh,
So, like,
wow.
There's like math to it.
So when
There's,
you
like, a
say
craft.
theme, I'm all very much into the analytical side, but I'm so dumb with music. So when you say theme, you mean literal music.
Literal musical theme. So like in Into the Woods, the first notes are I wish.
Yeah.
Which is
I wish.
yes, it's just it's a major second. It's up the scale. Do re.
Go Ray.
And so like that's like the first little one, but then there are longer ones, 8, 10, 12 notes.
Yeah.
And every once in a while it'll be the reverse of that, or it'll be backwards. He'll play the
Really?
same melody backwards.
Really?
And so the when we initially studied it, the first act of Into the Woods, the end of Act 1, every character gets what they want.
Yes.
And the second act is all about the consequences for getting what you
Yeah.
want. And so when we initially pitched the project for the money or whatever, we were like, oh, we're going to study a thing called musical consequence, which means how does the music change from the first act to the second act? And what we discovered is it doesn't really work like that. How it does work is the first 12 minutes is this giant overture, and he gives you all the ingredients that he's going to use for the rest of the show.
Yeah.
So like the melody that hits you in the gut,
Which is actually what Proust does too.
Yes, it's very Prousty.
Yeah.
And I think in the way I put together my solo show, there's like a little bit of that also where stuff starts to come together at the
Yeah.
end. So like
it's all, the whole thing, the whole DNA is in that opening.
if you look at the first 12 minutes, it's an instruction on how everything else works. And so I think that's a pretty fun way to write things. And I think that's why it's fun to study stuff as a comedian. Sometimes like you meet these comedians, sometimes you're like, oh yeah, like I was a bad student, I was bad in college, or I didn't go to college or whatever. It's like, no, but you're smart in this like other way, and that you can like pick up stuff.
Right.
You observe, you're a sponge.
And it's similar to solo shows, which me and you both like to do. Solo shows, the opening tends to be very important and usually brought back at the end in a, key way. You know what I mean?
And
typically the structure of all solo shows is you have one line you say in the beginning and you say later at the end, but it means something different now. That's like the key to all solo shows.
Yeah.
You know?
And if you can do that,
yeah.
I mean, and so I think like when I started getting,
Which is, by the way, what happened with Into the Woods. It begins with I wish.
yeah.
And it begins with I wish again at the end. But I wish in the beginning is a childlike, fairy tale wish that aesthetically feels like your conventional fairy tale. And at the end, it's just after all this loss. And that I wish is now seen in this, I hope things go well, but they probably won't.
Yeah. And when Sondheim wrote his book, analyzing all his lyrics, he does you're going to love this. He does a dream casting of Into the Woods. And he's listing, this person will play the baker's wife, this person will play Cinderella. And at the very end, he's like, and I would love for Robin Williams to play the baker.
Oh, wow.
I wish. It was right before Robin Williams died. And I was like, that would have been great.
Right. Well, they got James Corden, so someone's still annoying. But no, I'm joking. I love James Corden.
I'd love to be on that show also. Him and Hassan Minaj, I have no problems with. I just want to make this very clear.
But But yeah, I mean, if you don't know Into the Woods, if you're listening at home, you don't know Sondheim Fonz. If you don't know Sondheim, it's a show that's incredible. It's the second show I really fell in love with. The amazing. The movie is okay, but you really got to watch the production online.
There's an original cast.
Original cast production, which is great. It's a fairy tale stories, but the first half is legitimately. I mean, there is some. It's trying to use adult psychology in fairy tale stories, and the first half has a little of that adult psychology, but overall, aesthetically, kind of feels like a fairy tale. I mean, it's like pure corn at some times, which makes it so effective in the second half when the narrator dies, which is creating like an almost like godless existence where there's no objectivity, and then they're all lost and people just start dying
people
violently.
Are getting murdered.
It's insane. It's an insane, and it's so effective. I mean, in a way, the first half takes a big risk because in the first half it is at times like, oh, this is some corny shit.
Yeah.
But then by making you feel that way, the second half, the tonal shift is so emotionally effective where you see everything fall apart and you see the things you wish for in life just keeps on going on and it gets shitty and people have moral dilemmas and they cheat
and they're alone
and you have to create your own moral universe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just an incredible it's an incredible show.
And it means things to different people as you get older.
Yes.
Like when I was a little kid, I remember seeing that show at Community Theater in upstate New York and being like, first of all, every actor in that was like a celebrity to me.
Right.
And second of all, like I remember like being totally floored by it and being like, oh, I remember saying to my mom, I used to say this all the time, I love a mixed up story. Yeah. Meaning I love, Cinderella, I know.
Right.
And Little Red Riding Hood, I know, but now they're in this whole universe. Right. It's like, I guess it's my attempt at understanding like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Right, like they're all together.
Right.
And then the second act, in middle schools, they'll do only the first act of Into the Woods, and it doesn't make any sense because the show ends and everyone's happy.
Yeah.
And like literally there are jokes on Twitter where people are like, brought my boyfriend to see Into the Woods. Like at the end of the first act, he was like, that was great. And I'm like, hold on.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it does take a risk in the show. And the first half has some great songs.
Yeah.
But overall, it's like, if you leave just the first act, you're like, that was interesting.
Yeah.
But then the second half is so devastating and nihilistic at times.
Yeah.
And also, but at the same time, it's such an interesting show because it like has this like deep despair in it, but it also has this almost conservative, like the importance of community. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it which is an interesting theme you don't always see.
It's why I prefer it to Sweeney Todd.
Well, Sweeney Todd is pure like nihilism.
Yeah, that's one that like people love.
Yeah,
and when people love it, I respect that. I'm like, whatever, like because people have it in their top 2, top 3.
Yeah,
and for me, it doesn't reach that because I don't relate to it in the same way. Like I grew up with fairy tales. I wasn't like a horror kid.
Yeah,
I wasn't like a blood and gore kind of kid.
Yeah, and
so that one's a little bit harder for me to get into. But Into the Woods, like from the moment I saw it, I was like, this is for me.
Right.
And there's good jokes. There's like truly like, I mean, they're musical theater jokes.
Yeah.
But like the dumb hot princes, like, oh, that character works in anything.
Right. And also those hot princes, which they have this kind of supposed to be just more of the whimsical songs, Agony.
Yeah.
Though I watched it recently, the Broadway production, and even this song, which is kind of a silly song in the show, is really very much about people trying to pursue things they can't have. And it's all pure, it's basically that narcissistic form of love that they talk about in Proust, where they're always pursuing something within reach that they can't get.
Yeah.
Not within reach.
Even when they're hot and rich.
Even when they're hot and rich. And it's a narcissistic thing. And then it gets old and they have to pursue something else. You know what I mean? So they're caught. Watching Agony is watching all my issues. It's like a fun little song. It's watching all my issues.
Of course. And if Raanan, you know a musical's good when you and I are relating to hot princes.
Yeah, right. I mean, I watched that production online. I cried. It's so fucking amazing. Moving when they all. I mean, I hope I want, if you don't know Sondheim, I want you to go watch it. How great he is. But I mean, the thing about Sondheim that's so great. I wrote some shit down. Is that like he has beautifully simple, insightful, wise lines and the cleverest shit in the world. And if he just had the cleverest shit in the world, it wouldn't be enough. You know what I mean? It'd be too clever for his own good.
Well, we know comedians like that.
Yeah, exactly. He's clever. I mean, there's of course one of the most clever lines is they're selling Jack as they're selling his cow.
Who's his best friend?
Who's his best friend, and the mother is trying to convince him that we have to sell the cow.
Milky White. Let's go. Fun.
Oh, fun. Hell yeah. He really, yeah. So he has that line, son, we've no time to sit and dither while her withers wither with her. Yeah. So the 3 homonyms in a row, you know what I mean? It's just like, linguistically, that's just so clever. You know what I mean? Yeah. But if he was only that, if he was only wordplay, it wouldn't be enough. But then there's songs that are just so fucking powerful.
Oh yeah, I mean, no one is alone.
Yeah,
you're just like, kill me, you know? Like, and that's a song that like you don't even have to have had experienced like great loss in the moment. It's just like even if you feel a little bit alone, it's like that song is with you.
I mean, to me, when it comes to death, I mean, I feel like the line "sometimes people leave you halfway through the wood" is like the greatest line about death. You know what I mean? Yeah. And of course,
you decide what's good.
You decide what's good.
So like, there's all these choices in the world.
Yeah,
and
you have to make your own choices. You have to make your own moral choices, and there's no right answer. Yeah. And that song had, I think I saw someone sing that song recently at a review, and I'm like, this is a song for our time right now. I mean, maybe it's a song for anyone's time, but like, everything is so divisive. Yeah. And then they have this amazing line. I want to read. I feel like if Sondheim goes with here, he'd correct me if I fuck anything up. But the line, do you know it by heart?
Remind me.
The line about the giants, which is one of the most beautiful lines about not, seeing other people's sides. Here, let me get it. Hold on.
Yes, I know the exact line you're talking about.
It is such a song for our times. Just trying to see the other person's side. The whole song is talking about how like no one is alone. Everyone has consequences. Everything connects with each other. You have to make your own choices, but you're not fully alone. You know, things have consequences, and we're all in a community together. And then there's one line that's just where the fuck is the line? Oh yeah, here's the line. Witches can be right, giants can be good. You decide what's right, you decide what's good. Just remember, someone is on your side, our side, someone else is not. And this is a line that kills me. While we're seeing our side, maybe we forgot they are not alone. No one is alone. And so it's just kind of, because they are fighting these giants in it. Yeah. But the song also recognizes the giants are not evil.
Mm-hmm. The Giants has that line. She's like, are we sure we should kill this guy?
Yeah, he's not even bad. She's just avenging her husband's death. Yeah. So it's looking at war or everything as just like different communities, but the morality. I mean, the show really is about how morality is not this objective thing. Yeah. And how it is in a way. I don't know if it's conservative opinion in a way, but it is kind of like saying like, look, sometimes you have to fight, and you find your community, you fight, but that doesn't necessarily mean the other side's wrong. And I think that was pro-life shit a lot. It's like, look, I'm pro-choice, and I'll fight for a woman's right to choose. But that doesn't mean I don't see where they're coming. They're fighting for their values. It's not that there's good and evil for the most part. Sure. Except for Nazis, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. It's not that, and even them, honestly, it's not good and evil. Everyone's fighting for their narrative and their values. Yeah. And this is the thing the show brings up within a fantasy.
Well, it's a thing that I think about all the time with whenever you read like a New York Post tweet, and they're like, guy who got out of prison like punches man in the face, and everyone's like, put him in jail forever, kill him. And I'm always like, oh, like it takes a village to make this person,
right? Exactly.
And like
you move just one finger,
say the slightest word.
Well, that's why I always say people are like, men are all serial killers are the worst. Yeah, but those bitch mothers. Behind every serial killer is a mother that grabbed his dick when he was 3 and goes, I'll cut this off if you don't like tell me I'm a if you don't cuddle with me tonight. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just fucking like, it's never just one person. It's a community. You know what I mean? Yeah. And also the show, of course, has probably the greatest song, Moment in the Woods, where you see someone truly thinking and figuring it out, interrupting herself within this perfect musical melody. Yeah. But then also kind of coming to this realization she just cheated. Yeah. And coming to this realization, which people don't talk about in real life ever.
Yeah. I'm going to look up this lyric because it's good.
In movies, if you cheat, you're evil. If you don't, you're not. She cheats and kind of realizes at the end that whether it's wrong or right, it's okay she did that. And now it's time for her to go back to her life. And she can't live in this world of cheating all the time because if life were only made of moments, even every now and then a bad one. Oh, if life were only made of moments,
you'd never know you had one.
Know you had one. So she's like, you can't just live in this life of lust you know, it would just be, you need that stability. But at the same time, she's not going to fucking feel awful about this cheating
forever. Yeah.
She's going to be like, well, I did it. I had this experience and I'm going to go back to my husband and appreciate it.
Yeah.
And you literally have a pro
and because it's
affair.
a woman. Yeah. And because it's a woman, like, and because it's a character, like the baker's wife, somebody we've gotten to know over the course of 90 minutes, he like slips in this fucking huge emotional truth about cheating, about being faithful, and the idea of like, if life were only moments that you wouldn't know you had one, like, oh, you also need some time to reflect.
Yes.
You can't, like, the last couple of weeks have been like kind of insane for me in terms of just like getting like new, like sometimes small, but sometimes big opportunities. And I'm like, oh, I just like need a minute.
Yeah.
Like every day can't be another huge moment in my life. Like I need a day to just be like, what the fuck was that? What just happened to me?
Right. We do get inundated with all these experiences all the time, and you have no chance to. Well, I always try to remind myself. I'm like, I had 42 different worries yesterday that were replaced by 42 other worries today. Sometimes I try to remember the worries from a week ago, just to remember how quickly everything goes. Yeah. I'm like, oh, it was only a week ago I was worried that I had lymphoma, and now I'm worried I have shingles. Like, it's just like you try to like track it, you know. Yeah. But our life is all these experiences. Then we have like memory loss. It's like we just every day. Your mind gets replaced with new worries. Yeah. And you totally forget that you were convinced you had fucking
of course
lung cancer on Friday because now you're worried you have bud bugs on Tuesday. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was worried like, oh, it's like in the anniversary of something bad that happened in a parent's life. Like today's gonna be a bad day for me. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're just like creating things. Like, and now it's Tuesday and I'm like, I'm fine.
Well, I mean, I realize this, like, worries are so relative to your life. I saw someone on TV in Ukraine talking about they're literally worried about their family getting killed in a missile launch. And then I was with my friend walking on the street yesterday, and he said the line, I'm really worried that the new Black Panther movie won't be very good. And I'm like, worries really?
Yeah, it's all
worries
relative.
like those are the two worries that two human beings can have. Yeah. He's worried his family's gonna die, and my friend's worried that this movie might not live up to the first movie.
Yeah. Or it's so funny when people are like, oh, I feel bad for that Disney CEO. Yeah. I'm like, oh, the guy who got fired without cause is now going to be loaded forever.
Well, that's America. We have a lot of sympathy for rich people in America. That's a weird thing.
That is a thing.
Like, is Ben Affleck and Jennifer Aniston going to be okay? It's like, you live in a shotgun house and your husband beats you every night and you're worried about Jennifer Lopez?
I'm glad we could have this riff and in the middle of a Sondheim discussion. That is really, truly my sweet spot.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, no one is alone, you know.
The other lyric I wanted to look up from this is, let the moment go. Don't forget it for a moment, though. Yes. Just remembering you've had an and when you're back to or makes the or mean more than it did before. Because she's always like, is it always a prince or a husband?
Yeah, and or, yeah.
And an or is kind of like a logical fallacy. In symbolic logic, like they mean...
no longer looking at things as binary.
Yeah. You've had everything you wanted at once. You had a prince, and you had a husband who was like going into the woods to find a child for you. And now that you've had both, like, what do you want?
Right. No, and don't let the moment go, and don't forget it for a moment. Though is also this great thing about, like, instead of puritanically looking at this affair as this evil sin. Instead, break free from that kind of Puritanism, which is in kind of the first act. Break free of this Christian theology and look at it more as experiences you can learn from. Yeah. As opposed to things you see as eternal sins.
Yeah.
You know? All done with just a fucking baker's wife in the woods.
Yeah. Well, Joanna Gleason, I mean, she's so good in that.
Oh, incredible. Yeah.
And now Sarah Bareilles.
Yes. Yeah, it was also amazing. It's a great show. You know, and I remember Sondheim talking. I wish we could talk more, but we got a couple minutes. We'll wait till Jordan comes in. She's always late, but for the next one. But
are you guys also talking about Sondheim?
No, we're doubling it up. We're talking about Prozac. But Sondheim said once, I've read so much about him, biography stuff. He did say once, and I think it was really interesting. He said to the book writers, whoever it was, don't talk about the themes in the dialogue. Leave it for me. I can talk about the themes in the songs, and with the music in it, it's no longer preachy. So, like, essentially,
like jokes.
And essentially, if you look at his songs, the themes I mean, that thing we just read, Moment in the Woods is all themes, you know what I mean? And it's open about the themes, you know?
Yeah.
But because it's, if that was just like dialogue, it might be a little, you know, on the nose. But with music, it allows you to just kind of openly address the themes, you know what I mean?
Yeah. He talks about it as there's a great TikTok account, Sondheim interviews.
Yeah.
And he talks about like musical theater is a outward facing art. We're
Yeah.
literally going to tell you
Yes.
the thing. And I truly think my solo shows, I kind of do the same thing where I'm like, I'm just going to say the thing.
Right.
And we'll react to that in whatever way.
Yeah, solo shows are similar. You kind of have an agenda and what you're going to say, and you try to be a little transparent about it, you know?
Yeah. And the jokes allow you to say things that you might not normally just get to say in a story or a monologue.
Right.
And so you're adding layers to this. And that's why now I'm in a process of turning my show like into theater. Like we're adding graphics, we might add sound, we're adding pictures of Sondheim, we're adding staging. It's like, oh, if you can make a joke not with words, now we're going past the idea of dialogue. Don't put the themes in the script.
Right.
The themes of my show, hopefully, can be achieved through these
other things. Yeah. No, and that's definitely the way to do it. Yeah, I'll tell you, I don't think I got to it my first introduction to Sondheim, which I do want to talk about.
Yeah, please.
I never really got into musicals. I was like you, Font. I thought they were, you know, gay and whatever the fuck, whatever homophobic bullshit you think. And but I didn't like musicals, I didn't, I just wasn't. I mean, I liked Wizard of Oz, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But
but you were a film.
I was a film
movie,
guy. I was a film cunt. And
yeah.
But then I saw, I was a film guy, so Tim Burton. I love Tim Burton.
Yeah.
I don't know. This was like college. This wasn't, I got into it late, I guess.
Yeah. I
know you came out of your mom's vagina fucking doing show tunes, you know what I mean? Will you light my candle? But I was watching Sweeney Todd. Remember Sweeney Todd? Johnny Depp.
Oh, yeah.
Sweeney Todd, Tim Burton movie. I was watching in theaters, and I knew it was a musical. And it starts, and the music comes, and it's always weird at first because it's also Tim Burton. It's really dark, so you're like, yeah, I'm gonna watch a Tim Burton movie. And I didn't really know what Sweeney Todd was about, so it starts off so like it's just this guy on the ship going, "I have sailed the seas to London." I'm like, oh god. And then in the middle, it starts to get darker, but I'm not. I had this. It's like. This moment where I finally was like, what the? It was like really one of the experiences of my life where I was seeing something new. It's the moment where he starts singing the song to the woman. If you don't know Sweeney Todd, it's about a guy whose wife was raped by this judge who now wants to rape the guy's daughter, and he's coming back for revenge.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, he slits people's throats and turns them into pies that he feeds to the people of London in this in a somewhat satirical metaphor for capitalism.
But it's just like Oklahoma.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just insane, right? And he. But before that in the movie, it's just a song where he goes, here I am thinking musicals are all like, I got my girl and whatever the fuck. And then he just starts singing a song where he goes, the first lines are, "We all deserve to die." And it was like, I found love. It was like love. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
There's a song where he goes, "We all deserve to die."
Yeah.
Even you, Mrs. Lovett, even I. And I'm like, I never knew a musical could have such a dark fucking song.
Yeah.
And I fell in love right there.
Yeah.
And because that's the thing. It's not that I didn't like musicals. I just really love shit that's dark.
Yeah.
And no one's darker than Sondheim.
Nobody.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, he's, there's people maybe darker, but he is fucking, he has that fucking nihilism in him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this kind of like.
Well, his mother didn't love him.
Yeah.
He told his mother on her deathbed, so the
Wrote
only
a letter.
regret I
It was
have.
a letter, yeah.
Yeah, that you were born.
Yeah.
So it's
Probably
like he's
a little
a sad guy.
Yeah.
But it's funny.
No wonder he writes nice letters all the time. To
I
people.
know, yeah. Well, it's so funny. It's like, oh, of course that's your, like, knowing you and your taste. Like, oh, that's your intro to Sondheim. For me, it was like 12.
Yeah.
In a community theater seeing the first act of Into the Woods. Like, but however you get there, eventually you grow up and you live enough life where you're going to need something that can, like, satiate you. Like, I can't watch, Rent's a bad example, but I can't watch, like, Memphis or, like, some, like.
I don't even know what fuck, is that a thing?
It won the Tony. It's bad. But, like, I can't watch something that's, like, so surface anymore at a certain point. Because even at 17, I was like, oh, I'm alone, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So eventually you live enough life where, like, Sondheim hits you. And he's really, everybody, that's such a good Sondheim question to people who know him. It's like, what was your thing? Like, how did you get in?
Yeah.
And then once you got in, what did you discover? Because then once I found Sunday in the Park with George, that was the one, because that's about art. It's about making art.
Yes.
And so I think there's a certain point with comedians where it's like, oh, if you like Sondheim, like, I want you to watch Into the Wood, or I want you to watch Sunday in the Park with George, because that's the one we probably have the most in common with.
Right. And that's the thing about Sondheim. I guess similar to Shakespeare's, like all his musicals are very different. And they have very different themes. Yeah. It's not like Tarantino where you're like, oh, movies again. And
movies and violence.
Yeah, movies and violence.
You know,
it's like
we love
every show is vastly different. And there's no like, I mean, you can find overarching themes, but overall, I mean,
you got to be looking for them sometimes.
But it's like very different philosophies in the show, which is like Shakespeare in the sense like Shakespeare has plays that are all about things working out, and he has plays about the end of civilization. You know what I mean? Yeah. He has the world. You know what I mean? Like, oh, Brave New World, and but then he also fucking has the plays that like Boys to Ants, or like what is it? Like Ants to Boys or We to the Gods. They kill us for their sport. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like Wanton Boys to Ants or We to the Gods. They kill us for their sports. You know what I mean? So it's like he can be full blown nihilism like Sweeney Todd.
Yeah.
But then he can also be like a community, the need for a community to fend off loneliness and death. Like in
I mean, as an artist, he's the most inspiring artist I know because he kept reinventing himself.
Yes.
Like even,
as Dylan says, he's not busy being born, he's busy dying.
Yeah. Dylan's like a classic example, right? Because he famously kind of changed when people didn't want him to.
Yes.
And Sondheim in the same way. So like when I think about solo shows, or you think about your hours and stuff like that, like I would like to look back on my life and be like, oh, that was a curveball, and like maybe it didn't work.
Right.
Because Sondheim also, we're talking about him as a genius, and he was, but like he had a lot of flops. Like
he had
so many of stuff.
A flop. Merrily We Roll Along was such a flop he wanted to quit.
Yeah.
It not only a flop, but people he felt like the critics were like hating it so much, like they enjoyed his fall.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Once you have a little success, people love you. But once you start getting success, the anger people really like to see people fall down. Like it's just part of human nature.
Yeah.
So the vitriol towards him after Merrily We Roll Along was so bad, he literally was considering just working on video games.
Yeah. And it opens this week with Harry Potter, Daniel Radcliffe playing the lead. So like, keep going, keep writing.
Exactly. So yeah, so that was the that was the introduction, and then I got Into the Woods, which I love. Sunday in the Park with George is that's his most intellectual show, which you really got to have to analyze and figure out.
It's the best. The first act in particular. For me, first act. People ask me what's my favorite Sondheim musical. I think the first act of Sunday. The second act,
a little top hat. It's a
little top heavy, but like so is my show.
Yeah,
like everything I do is
most
top
things
heavy.
are top heavy. Yeah, but the second half also has some. I mean, to be fair, the second half has like some of the best songs too.
Oh, Children and Art for me. Yeah. It's not so much do what you like as it is that you like what you do.
Yeah. God. So many. I mean. And it has one of the great breakup songs of all time. We Belong Together.
Yeah, we do not belong.
I mean, we do not belong together. Yeah. Really, God, the thought I would be so upset. I put the not in there. That was really crucial. And we have to go in a second. I think she's almost here, but I just want to say a couple other lines I fucking loved.
Oh, of course. We're gonna have to do a part 2 at one point.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, there's of course the great one from. Maybe I didn't even have this. The one from Company, one of the great rhymes. This is one of the more clever ones. But I don't think I have it down. About he somehow rhymes personable with coercing a bull.
Yeah.
Which is great. And then of course in Follies, I love this. This is a woman breaking up with a guy or a married guy, and she's saying. He asked if she's saying, "Would I leave you?" Mm-hmm. And it's in the tone of a song of kind of like a love song, and yet she's very bitter, and she has a great line. She goes, "Could I live through the pain on a terrace in Spain?" Which once again, it's in the structure of one of those songs where like, "Could I live without you in this place, in this place, in this place?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the pure. Could I live through the pain on a terrace in Spain? Would it pass? It would pass. Could I bury my rage with a boy half your age in the grass? Bet your ass. But I've done that already. Or didn't you know, love? Tell me, how could I leave when I left long ago, love? And it's done in this kind of, I don't know, waltz is a waltz or one of those.
Yeah, it's like a patter song where they're just
patter
listing
song,
stuff.
but it that it's like a Cole Porter kind of like.
Yeah.
Could I live without you here? No, I couldn't. You know what I mean? But it's done with such, and that's ultimately everything he does is ultimately a deconstruction of the musical itself and a deconstruction of the musical expectation to be happy. Yeah. So there's deconstruction of obviously Into the Woods, a deconstruction of fairy tales and songs.
Yeah.
But that's ultimately a deconstruction of all his shows are deconstruction of just that expectation of musicals,
Yeah.
He's the best. And I hope you, if you don't know him, check him out. Start,
If you don't know him and you've listened this far, you are a huge Raanan fan, and we appreciate you.
But anyway, you got a great, thanks for doing. You got a great solo show. I bombed opening for it a couple weeks ago, and
not a great crowd. Raanan was great.
I have too much energy for these shows. Yeah. But yeah, it's a great show. And it got an extension, and now
we're doing 6 weeks in January,
amazing,
February,
man.
and I'm going to do it in LA, and lots of good stuff happening. And I have Hasan Minhaj as director. So if you liked Homecoming King,
well, I'm so glad that you're fucking getting, you're really doing it, man.
I am. I have a modicum of success where people are still happy for me.
Yeah,
and they have not, because there hasn't been any real money.
Yeah.
I have enough money to pay all my very expensive collaborators.
You kind of only know you're doing well when people resent you.
I know, and it's about to happen. I can feel it. I can feel people.
I'm feeling a little. So you
good.
must be
That's
working.
good. Yeah.
Check out his solo show and check out where can they find you on Instagram?
Just at Gabe Mollica.
Gabe Mollica, and you can find him opening for me in tents and
carnival
campgrounds and fields across the country.
Maybe one day we can do a small theater.
Yeah. And follow me online. Instagram Raanan Comedy, Raanan Comedy. All my links to my shows are on my on the link on the Instagram, or it's on my website RaananHershberg.com. I'll be on the road. Check me out. I'm all over the place. All right. Peace.